The president wants to spy on 200 million Americans without a warrant. Has he read this document, which he was sworn to uphold?
Now, I will not have you libel Abraham Lincoln.
I don't understand the problem with registering guns. We register cars.
Mark Levine brings you the news the government doesn't want you to know.
Today, an explosive story about connections between white supremacists and Islamic terrorists.
When there's a conflict between Scalia's conservative values and the Constitution of the United States, he throws away the Constitution.
When we do have secret prisons, that is not what America's all about.
Let's go to Mark in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. The Constitution says that the president shall, from time to time, give to the Congress information of the state of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. There actually aren't that many things in the Constitution for the president to do. He's the commander-in-chief, of course. He appoints a bunch of people. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. But other than that, he's got to give that State of the Union. Now, it doesn't say once a year, but every president has given this a State of the Union speech or address or writing of the State of the Union once a year at the beginning of his term since the beginning. And for the last 100 years or so, it's being done before a joint houses of Congress. The House and the Senate all stand together. Oh yay, the President of the United States and President Obama will tomorrow say what measures he believes are necessary and expedient. No doubt he will use the phrase that, I can remember in virtually every State of the Union in my lifetime, which is the State of the Union is strong. Is the State of the Union strong? How could it be made stronger? If the president is giving us these policies that he finds necessary and expedient, it's obviously not perfect. But after all, the Constitution is all about developing a more perfect union. So I want to start by talking how is the State of the Union and how it can be made better. And who better to do that with than my Republican counterpart, Mike Lane, the president of Intelligence Strategies. Mike, good to see you again.
Good to be back, Mark. Thank you.
So let's talk about the current State of the Union and how it can be made stronger.
All right.
As a Democrat, I can tell you a number of things I hope to hear from President Obama tomorrow night. I'd like to hear him address raising the minimum wage. I'd like to make sure that he talks about making sure that people who've been long-term unemployed get the funding they need to go out and look for jobs rather than worried about finding their next meal. I want to hear him talk about food stamps. I want to hear him talk about immigration and giving people who have lived in America virtually all of their lives but weren't born here a chance to become citizens. There's a whole bunch of things I'd like to hear him talk about. As a Republican, though, your party has been sort of the party of no this entire presidency. You've been the party, not so much, I would argue, with ideas, but the party trying to stop President Obama's ideas. What ideas do you think, if any, could President Obama put forward that your party would be quick to accept?
Well, Mark, first of all, I'm glad to see that he accepts this as constitutional responsibility to move forward and deliver a State of the Union address. He doesn't seem to understand the rest of it, where he's expected to faithfully execute the duties of the office and enforce the laws of the United States. Oh, well, so be it. He only has 3 years left, thank the Lord.
I'm glad you enjoyed your little rhetorical
what
push.
I would
Go
like,
right ahead.
What I would like to see him do is pivot for the 3,921st time back to jobs. Only this time I want him to really mean jobs. I want him to work with everyone in terms of growing the economy, creating the economic expansion we need to create jobs so everyone who wants a job can have it. We've got 35 million people who are unemployed or underemployed in this country. The U6 rate is almost 12%. That's the rate of people who are, just not employed at where they should be. Mark, we need someone who will finally focus on jobs. I'm hopeful that the president will do that, but I'm not hopeful that he will do that.
I mean, as you know, Mike, the unemployment level is certainly down from the peaks of the recession.
11.6% is the U6 mark. It's awful.
It's down to about 7%.
And that's awful.
It is.
That's
it
absolutely
is. We
awful.
definitely need more and better jobs for people. And one of the ways I think we need to have jobs that actually pay for people's living. I mean, there's no reason to take a minimum wage job. A minimum wage job earning $7.25 an hour. I was just talking with Sarah Ward, producer back there, about Henry Ford, who 100 years ago decided to pay his workers enough to make his Model Ts to afford his Model Ts. And we did some calculations. Sarah did most of them. We figured out that that wage, which was $5 a day 100 years ago, would be $13 an hour today. $13 an hour doesn't seem like much. It's maybe $26,000 a year, barely getting you out of poverty, but it's almost twice the current minimum wage.
And Mark, as you know, manufacturing is the thing that creates economic growth. It creates wealth. It takes bits and pieces, puts them together, and creates something more valuable that people are willing to pay for. The average manufacturing job today, like Henry Ford, pays a lot more than $13 an hour. It's the jobs that don't create wealth that don't pay that much, Mark.
Well, the jobs that don't create wealth. I mean, we'll get to that in a second, but let me finish the point about manufacturing. So productivity, maybe a good manufacturing job and get $20, $30 an hour, but productivity has gone up way more than 2 or 3 times since Henry Ford. It's gone up hundreds and hundreds of times. And what we find is that as you go through about the 1970s, you find that when productivity increased, the corporations, they made a lot of money. The bosses made a lot of money. But the workers on the assembly lines, they made more money too. Everyone
should make money as you go forward.
What you find in the last, really, it started in the Reagan era, stopped a bit in the Clinton era, definitely in the Bush era. With these productivity gains, workers work harder. And what that means is their bosses get richer. And they get virtually none of the increase in their hard work. They get virtually none of that wages back. Shouldn't minimum wage at least track, before we even get to productivity, track inflation?
Interestingly, you talk about, in the Reagan era and in the Bush era and things like that, no segment of workers has not done worse than in the Obama era. No matter how you want to slice it, if you want to talk about teenage workers, they're much worse off in the Obama era. If you want to talk about women workers,
you're probably including the Bush recession and the Obama era.
Women are much worse off in the Obama economy than they are anyplace else. If you want to talk about blacks and other minorities, they are much worse off than they were in any other thing.
Do you know why they're worse off?
Let's talk about the difference between Reagan and Obama. In Reagan's first term, women's economic position increased by 36%.
In Reagan's first term, the unemployment rate was 11%.
And
you were complaining about 7% unemployment.
Right.
Shouldn't be citing Ronald Reagan's first term when unemployment hit 10.8%.
But he got it down to 4%. He got the inflation that he inherited at 20% down to 4%. He got, the misery index was never as bad as it was as when Ronald Reagan took presidency, except for right now, the misery index is even worse than it was under Jimmy Carter. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
That's not true because misery is unemployment plus inflation, and inflation is at record lows. So I'm sure the misery index is not even 10%, frankly, much less the 20% or so that it was under Carter and Reagan.
Up.
No, but here's the question, though. The reason why people are having such a hard time today is because their wages haven't kept up with inflation or their productivity.
So the reason they're having a hard time is because they don't have jobs. They don't have jobs.
Your people are doing better, okay? The corporations are doing great.
Not my
people. The stock market hit record highs. It's gone down a little bit. 2 weeks ago, it hit absolute records. There is more corporate cash just sitting there. Trillions of dollars sitting there, and CEOs, I'm sure, raid whatever they can out of it and take what they can, but mostly it's being unspent. It's not being invested in the economy.
First of all, if they do, they ought to go to jail.
Well, no, they can legally do it because all they do is they vote themselves better wages. They vote themselves, $100 million if it succeeds.
Well, that's not
$200 million
that's not ripping off the
if
till,
it doesn't
then.
succeed. I think it is. I think it is. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's still not wrong. Here's the problem. The reason why corporations aren't spending trillions of dollars is there's not enough demand for their products. And the reason there's not enough demand for their products is because the middle class is struggling, and the working class is struggling more, and poor people are struggling even more. And if we simply would have the same kind of wage structure we had in the 60s or the 50s, or really almost any time since the 1920s, almost back to Henry Ford, then middle-class people could afford to buy enough products, and then those corporations would say, oh, well, we better build another factory. We better provide more services to
Mark,
people.
I differ with you. I'm sure you're not surprised.
I know.
Look, the reason that the corporations are not investing that money is because of the uncertain environment. They have no idea what their costs are going to do for any job they create.
That's just silly.
Obamacare is in a death spiral now. It's about to die. We don't know what the economic bailout of the insurance companies is going to be. I hope nothing. I hope they all go belly up if that's what, for getting in bed like that. But in addition, in the international market, the European economy is down. The Argentinian economy is in a death spiral right now. The Chinese economy is falling apart.
Mike,
Mark, in this uncertain environment, both in America and internationally, no one's going to invest that money. We need to create an environment that is conducive to economic investment, and the president opposes that. That's why we have no jobs, and that's why we have income inequality.
To say that it's because of an uncertain environment, that's just silly.
It is. It's totally uncertain environment.
The 1970s was certainly an uncertain environment. The 1980s, uncertain. They're always uncertain environments. There's always economic unrest all around the world. There's always questions of. Look during Vietnam, the 60s and 70s. 60s were a roaring decade economically, right? When people are protesting in the streets and protesting for Vietnam and civil rights.
The Vietnam War did not have an impact on the economy.
Let me tell you something.
The thing that has an impact on the economy is government regulation, taxes.
Let me tell you something. Rich people, if they can make more money, will invest in America.
Right.
And right now, they make more money by investing in China, by investing in Mexico, by investing in Thailand. Because,
first of all, they're not investing in China anymore because China's economy is going into the tank.
But your party allows them to make more money by killing American jobs than by creating American jobs. If we have the kinds of incentives, which my party has supported, remember, President Obama's had a jobs bill for 5 years that your party refuses to look at, that actually encourages companies to have jobs here rather than make wages off of the poorest Guatemalan worker or the poorest worker in Thailand or Mexico, then we could have better American jobs.
Mark, the House of Representatives has sent 57 separate job creation bills.
Why don't they consider Obama's?
Over to the Senate, and Harry Reid has not permitted a vote on a single one of those 57
President
votes.
Obama has had a jobs bill
here's where we
every
can
single
agree.
month, every single year for the last 5 years. Why doesn't John Boehner take that one up?
Here's where I think we can agree. Let's start with the Keystone Pipeline. Let's just build the damn Keystone Pipeline. Let's get 50,000 Americans to work building that thing.
50,000? You mean 500?
No. Those are permanent jobs, Mark. I'm talking about the 4 or 5 year jobs building the pipeline.
You're talking about
That's
the 2 years where the Canadian company will have its Canadian workers. I mean, I'm glad to hear that you're so happy to support Canadian workers.
No, they are not going to be Canadian
From
workers.
what I've seen, it's a few hundred jobs. And
those
what it
are the
mainly
permanent
does,
jobs, Mark.
No, those are the temporary jobs.
Mark, you can't build a pipeline transcontinental with a couple hundred people.
I'll tell you what it would do, though. It would be a great way to raise oil prices because, if they could ship their stuff to China overseas, they can charge more to Americans. So great way for a Chinese company and a Canadian company to make money while Americans pay higher oil prices.
The American people want the transcontinental pipeline.
And don't forget the oil spill.
It's good for economic security, it's good for energy security, and it's good for national security.
And don't forget you can have oil spills like you did in West Virginia. And I want to get to West Virginia when we come back. Folks, if you want to join this discussion, please do. 571-749-1166.
She's had more than a dozen fractures. And in the next few years, she faces 2 major surgeries to strengthen her fragile bones. She's only 10 years old. Most people don't worry about fragile bones until late in life. For those with osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bones are a concern throughout their lifetime. Find out how you can strengthen this child's future.
Diabetes is a killer. After I was diagnosed, I didn't feel sick, so I didn't listen to my doctor. Then it struck. I had a heart attack, then a stroke, and I was only 49.
Most people with diabetes also have high blood pressure and cholesterol, which can cause severe heart damage. In fact, 2 out of 3 people with diabetes die from heart disease or stroke.
Don't let diabetes destroy your life.
Call for your free diabetes survival guide. Choose to live.
Here again, your host.
I am discussing the State of the Union with Republican strategist Mike Lane. I am a Democrat. He is a Republican. We often disagree, but we certainly think we should talk with each other. Unfortunately, a lot of people in Congress don't do that enough, Mike. Look, it's easy to say, your jobs plan, that's the right jobs plan. President Obama's jobs plan or Democrats' jobs plan, that's the right jobs plan. Be specific. What specifically would you like to see President Obama propose tomorrow that actually would make a difference in your view?
If he would endorse and go ahead full speed with the Keystone Pipeline, I think he'll find cooperation on a lot of issues that Republicans don't want to cooperate on. That's the single most important thing he could do.
That's so minor.
The second most important thing he can do.
You know what? The Keystone Pipeline wouldn't lower unemployment more 0.1%. It wouldn't lower it 0.1%. It would raise gas prices. It would cause a huge environmental possible hazard over the Nebraska aquifers. The southern part, by the way, is already working, of the pipeline. And it would basically allow Canada to sell oil to China cheaper. I'm not sure why we want that.
Because it's, number one, it's economic activity in our country. Number two,
it's not in our country.
Mark, where do you think the pipeline goes? It goes right through the heartland of the United States of America.
Right, it's like saying that a tunnel, it's taking Canadian oil and selling it to Chinese markets. It used to have to stop in Kansas City and we would get the cheap Canadian oil. Now they'll be able to sell on the market price. That will raise gas prices all across the country.
No, it won't.
That will harm economic activity.
It actually won't.
Give me some of the Keystone Pipeline, because that's a non-starter.
No, the Keystone Pipeline is the single most important thing. The second most important thing he can do is a dramatic reduction in the corporate income tax. Let's take it right now from 35 down to about 20 or 22.
All right, let's do this, Mike. Let's take it out maybe to 25%, but make sure every corporation pays taxes every single year, because 3/4 of corporations pay zero tax, which means the effective rate of the corporate income tax is about 9%. You take 35% on the 1/4 that are paying, you divide by 4 because 3/4 don't pay, and you get about 9%. This is something that I think is doable between Democrats and Republicans. Lower rate, but everybody pays.
I'll even agree to an increase in taxes for you. How's that? If you
increase in overall tax level.
If you say the effective tax rate is 9%, let's do tax reform. I'll give you 10%, and let's bring the corporate tax rate from 35 down to 10%, which is an increase of 10% over what you just told me they're just paying, and everybody pays it. I'm all in. All in.
And everybody pays it, and we get rid of all the loopholes and all the ways the corporations avoid taxes. And if they make it abroad, they have to pay for it too.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by abroad.
I mean, if a company makes a product abroad and then brings it and sells it to Americans because they make the cheap phones in China or something like that, then they've got to pay taxes.
When they repatriate that money, they absolutely will have to pay it.
They have to do it the moment they make it, because otherwise there's an incentive to stick it. No, they're not. They stick it in Bermuda.
In a foreign country.
Well, the United States already has a proposal. If they pay in the foreign country, you can deduct it 1-for-1.
But you just said no. No, you just said we weren't going to do that.
No, because if the tax in the foreign country are 1%, I want them to pay the remaining 9% to the United States. That's exactly right. Well, I want them to pay the full 10%, because here's the thing, that makes them less likely to stick it in Bermuda or Cayman Islands or tax havens and make sure they pay for it.
Corporations have a lot of money overseas, but they're not hiding it in the Caymans or Bermuda. They got a lot of other places they're putting it. They have ongoing operations throughout Europe.
They are holding it
Ford
in
Motor
cash.
Company is a huge European company. That's where they're holding it. They're not sticking it in hiding away bank accounts.
Have you seen some of the stuff? I mean, I don't mean to pick on any particular company, which I was about to name, but there are companies, they're doing all kinds of, look, if you make it and you sell it to Americans, you pay full American taxes. And you know what? If you have to pay additional foreign taxes, I'm fine with that too. I'll tell you why. Maybe you'll make it in America. Maybe if you have to pay American taxes and you have to pay Guatemalan taxes, maybe you won't hire Guatemalan workers. Maybe you'll hire American workers. So I'm okay with that if you make sure
you just made our immigration problem a lot worse by taking the economic investment out of the places where we want to grow their own economies, and you're letting them fall apart.
You know what?
Putting more pressure on our immigration system.
No. They can pay American taxes.
Mark, if
for the products sold
a Central
in America.
American worker can't get a job in their own country, they're going to come here illegally. That's why they're here.
I say let them come here legally. I think immigration has always been the lifeblood of America. I think people have always come here looking for a better life. And I think, frankly, the immigrants that come here work very hard, tend to do very well for themselves.
For the most part, you're exactly right.
Right. So I'm not scared of immigration. That doesn't frighten me.
Nobody is scared of immigration, Mark.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, if you don't want to be overwhelmed, if you don't want the system overwhelmed the way it currently is, that you need to have them have some sort of economic promise in their own country so that they won't illegally come here.
If the American companies want to go to Guatemala to sell products in Guatemala, that's one thing. What I don't want them doing is undercutting American labor, going to Guatemala, basically hiring people at $1 a day, well below our minimum wage, and then using that. If they're going to do that, you know what? They should pay American taxes.
You don't sell products to Guatemalans or El Salvadorans or anybody else who have absolutely no jobs because there's no investment in their country because all their workers are illegally coming to the United States.
It's not all.
You've got a vicious circle going there, and you
that's all the workers.
You're in the Obama death spiral here.
What I'm saying is there's been a race to the bottom, and the race to the bottom is because corporations are not spending their taxes on America, and they're not spending their corporate profits on Americans. And the reason they're not is Americans don't have enough money to spend because our wages are going down because they're getting cheap labor abroad.
All right.
And what I'd like to see...
I told you I'd go for 10% on the domestic stuff.
You told me you'd go for 20 to 22%. No loopholes.
No, I was assuming that the loopholes were still there.
No, well then there's no point. If you're going to keep the loopholes, you might as well raise it to 50%. Make sure they pay their taxes.
If they're already paying an effective rate of 9%, you can't raise the effective rate to 22%. That doesn't work. That is going to make it less attractive to invest here.
But the problem is that if they're basically, you're still rewarding them for taking jobs abroad, we're never going to get the 10% effective rate. We're just not going to get it.
We're on apples and oranges. You just don't get what I'm saying.
Sure, you're saying basically the companies get 10% in America, and then they go abroad, they get 0%. Great. And then I want to make sure that
the second most important.
You would agree that there's more. You would agree to an effective tax rate so that more corporate money comes in, and if more corporate money doesn't come in year one, we raise the rates 2%. If it doesn't come in, we raise it another 2%, and we keep raising it until we actually get the money back.
Until we're back to 50%,
we can go to 60%.
No investment in this country.
Because you told me that you're okay with bringing more corporate tax revenue in.
I said.
So we'll do a CBO study and we'll find out.
What I said was, seriously, we can agree on this, I think, was that if we just take where we are now, we need to take our 35% tax rate, which is the highest in the world, and we need to reduce it. We need to reduce it to about 20 to 22%.
President Obama supports
just to be competitive.
President Obama supports lowering the tax rates and getting rid of the loopholes.
If you want to, all right, then if you want to get rid of the loopholes, it's got to go down to about 9 or 10% because that's where it is now.
No, you got to get rid of the loopholes to get it down to 25%.
No, Mark, no.
No, but because you're not including the foreign loophole. That's the biggest loophole of all.
You know, what you want to do is you want to take an effective 9% tax rate and raise it to an effective 25% tax rate. You will never have any investment in this country at all under that circumstance.
What I'm saying is that under the current system, it is way too lucrative for corporations to basically avoid American taxes by using tricks and trades to have offshore companies or even offshore factories. And that's not good for America, it's not good for American workers, and it doesn't raise the tax money you want.
All right. The third most important thing he can do is show some flexibility on Obamacare. All right? What we need to do is...
I believe that was settled a few years back.
We need to get rid of the one-size-fits-all plan that Obama has where everybody, you know, can only get something that he has approved. And we need to go back to the market where you can buy medical insurance that fits you instead of a government structure.
Right.
That's what we need.
You go and you get cancer, and if you're rich, you get healed. If you're poor, you die. The market.
No.
The market where a Tiny Tim doesn't get to walk, but Ebenezer Scrooge gets the best health care ever.
No.
The market where people with pre-existing conditions are denied.
No.
Where young people don't have health care.
No.
The market.
Mark, did you hear what I said? In my proposal, I didn't address those things. I was addressing...
You said the market. Well, the market doesn't address those things.
Excuse me. There are certain things that I'm stipulating you can keep in return for the president being flexible on the plans. You can keep the 26-year-olds on their father's plans.
Okay.
You can keep the no pre-existing conditions. You can keep the no lifetime caps.
Okay.
You can keep all those things that you keep talking about.
Okay.
I'm ceding them to you
and subsidies for people who need it.
I'm ceding them to you in return for flexibility on the design of policies so people don't have to go through the exchanges. They can go out and buy their own policy on the open. No, I cannot. I am prevented by law.
No, you're not by law.
Yes,
you're
I am.
prevented maybe because your insurance company.
I'm prevented by law from going out. I have to go.
Oh, you're
through
talking
the
about you want to
exchange.
buy a catastrophic plan.
Yes.
You want to make sure that people can buy health care that basically is inadequate.
I want to buy.
You don't want minimum standards in health care.
I want to buy health care that doesn't provide me personally with lactation services. I want to buy health care that doesn't provide me with birth control. I want to buy things that don't provide me with maternity care.
Right.
All of these things that President Obama mandates that I purchase for me. I don't want that. I want to go out into the marketplace and I want to buy a plan that I want.
How about now you don't have to fund education because you don't have any kids, or
Mark,
you
I'm talking about
you don't
me.
have to fund Medicare
I'm talking
because
about
you're an elderly.
I
don't have to fund.
I don't want maternity care, Mark. I don't want it.
You know what?
You know what? You know what? I guess it's a good thing. I guess it's a good thing I have all those things because I might need them because I also have gender reassignment coverage. So when I get my gender reassigned, I can have, I mean, it's just.
Here's the dirty.
Why is the president forcing this down my throat?
Because here's the dirty secret about government. We're all in this together.
Right.
I pay for education even though I don't have kids in the school. I pay for Medicare even though I'm not elderly enough to get it. I pay for firefighters even though I've never had a fire in my house.
Right.
I pay for military to support a war in Iraq that I never voted for. The government
citizens don't get to vote for wars, Mark. So
and
that's a red
citizens
herring.
also don't get to vote to decide what's covered. If you believe that education is a good thing, as I do, if you believe that women's health care is a good thing,
women's
which
health care is a
do,
very good thing. I don't need women's health care. I want a policy that doesn't provide me personally with women's health care. Okay?
So why
is that too much to ask?
Why are you paying for education then? You don't need public school education anymore. Why are you paying for it?
I'm not paying
because you
for
recognize
me.
it's
I'm not paying for me. I'm paying for children.
That's right. And when you're paying for lactation services, you're paying for the women.
No, I'm paying for me, Mark. It's part of my policy. I don't want it.
It's
it's part of my policy,
when you're paying
Mark.
for
I don't want it.
You're paying for look, the
I don't need
idea
it.
that women should solely bear the cost of reproduction, that they should solely bear the cost of children, that doesn't make any sense at all. Men have as much to do with having children as women have to.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about me, Mark. I have certain
Your
things.
insurance company knows that you're not a woman.
I want the old bare bones catastrophic policy that I've had for 20 years that suited me very well and that was about maybe a third as expensive as what I'm facing.
Here's the thing. The vast majority of people under the Affordable Care Act are doing much better. Not everyone.
No,
it's true.
no.
The vast majority are people like the guy holding up the sign behind me who told me that his health care costs went down from $200 a month to $40 a month.
And God bless him. I'm willing to do that. I don't want to pay for
Here's the thing.
maternity services.
So here's the answer. We simply have universal care for everyone, and then we all pay less, and we get more.
I know
just like 35 nations on Earth, all of them live longer than we do, and they pay less than half of what we do. That's what Canada does. That's what Europe does. That's the obvious solution.
Mark, we have the best healthcare system in the world up until about a month ago. We are headed for one of the worst healthcare systems
Only
in
if
the
you're
world.
rich. Most Americans.
It's a loser for your party. Go ahead and defend it,
The
Mark,
best
but
health
it's a
care
loser
in the
for your
system
party.
in the world does not allow
We're going to take over the
millions
Senate
of Americans
on this issue.
to go bankrupt because they can't afford adequate health care. It doesn't happen in any other nation on earth, and it shouldn't happen in America. So I'll give you a chance to call in if you want right after this.
Art, a universal language, an expression
I don't
of
think
culture,
so, no. You got off.
of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs or to make a tax-free donation, contact cfrip at AOL.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America, and reading is fundamental.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Inside Scoop, I'm your host, Mark Levine. And yes, I continued the discussion or disagreement with my guest, Mike Lane, during the break because we can't get enough of these kinds of things. And yes, it is cheaper and better in Canada. Look up the statistics. Mark, they pay less than we do. They live longer than we do. It's cheaper and better.
I have a niece who is a practicing physician in Canada.
Okay.
All right. It's not better.
It is better. It is better. I admit that people are paid more in the United States. Hospitals make hundreds of thousands of dollars per bed, things like that they don't do in Canada.
I have the inside scoop.
Yeah.
It is not better in Canada.
Let me ask you about the one thing, because everything you said is a non-starter. But let me tell you about the one thing that I actually think could be done in this Congress, and that's immigration reform. This is something that Democrats have long supported. Things like the DREAM Act, allowing kids that came here when they were 6 or 7 or 8, did not come through any choice of their own, lived their whole lives here. Many times English is the only language they speak. They don't even know their home countries. Giving them a chance to become a citizen. That's something that not only Democrats have long supported, but many in your party are starting to recognize that if you don't support something like that, you're going to lose a lot of votes in 2014. Can we get at least immigration reform done?
Doubtful, but I'll tell you the calculus on that. First of all,
is that the most likely of anything?
Because you're dead wrong about 2014. There's no downside risk to nothing happening in 2014. The coalition turnout in 2014 is not going to mirror 2012.
Maybe you should get out and vote in 2014 and show him he's wrong.
So there's no pressure for 2014. There is a pressure for 2016. I'll grant you that, and you stated it correctly. But it's 3 years down the road. It's not 1 year down the road.
Well, maybe we just have to get some of those voters that come out in 2008 and 2012 to come out in 2014.
It's not going to happen, Mark. Obama's not on the ballot. So where are we? We do have some movement.
Doesn't matter if Obama's on the ballot.
Yes, it does. Look at 2010.
Latinos are
look at 2010 and what was the turnout in 2010, and that tells you what happens when Obama's not on the ballot.
I think the Latino American community is getting more sophisticated. Is more likely to come out in off years.
You know what?
And in higher numbers. And I think immigration reform will be the issue they'll come out.
I agree with you, but things don't improve 17,000% in one cycle. Things improve incrementally in each cycle, but nothing improves 17,000% in one cycle.
Does anyone in your party want to do immigration because it's the right thing to do rather than for political reasons?
Yes, we want to do immigration, but there's two problems. Number one, the president has not signaled any flexibility on this at all, and we're just not going to have.
What flexibility are you looking for? There's already a Senate bill that's passed. It's quite onerous. It requires a 13-year path to citizenship. It's not exactly easy. There's penalties all along the way. I think it's a compromise. It's a strong bipartisan bill. Why can't they just let that one? I'll bet you if the Senate bill went to the House, it would pass tomorrow. It has enough votes, Democrats and Republicans.
Look, the Senate bill is not a compromise. The Senate bill is
bipartisan bill.
You have the usual cast of characters on that
65, 70 votes. It was a significant number. It was way over 60.
It was an easy vote to throw because you knew that the House was not going to even consider.
Why not? What's wrong with the Senate?
Why hasn't Harry Reid considered a single one of the 57 jobs bills that the House has sent over?
Why hasn't the House considered Obama's bills? Look, you can give all the partisan stuff. What specifically is wrong with the Senate bill as a matter of policy?
There's not going to be a special pathway to citizenship, okay? It's just not going to happen. People who entered the country illegally are not going to get a special pathway.
So even if your parents brought you when you were 2.
No, just hang on.
All right.
You're not going to be able to bypass the system and enter into your special thing. No matter what your waiting list is, you're going to have to go through the regular process. Now, when you want to talk about the kids, that's a different story.
Oh, okay. So you would consider
that's a different story. I think there's
maybe they passed the DREAM Act.
No, I'm talking about a pathway to citizenship here. There is an argument to be made for a pathway to citizenship for the kids that, as you say, were brought here. Now, don't tell me none of them, speak anything but English, because I know for a fact that if Spanish is spoken in their home,
depends on the kids. Depends on the kids.
If Spanish is spoken in the home, Mark, they learn Spanish.
Depends on the kids and when they came, and they're not all Spanish language speakers.
Or Chinese, or Japanese, or Hungarian, or Romanian, whatever it is.
And I don't think it's bad for Americans to speak another language.
But the other thing, the other thing is that Republicans, for good reason, I think, Republicans do not trust Obama on border security. They think that this is another one.
President Obama has had more deportations in the last 5 years than President Bush in all of 8 years. I know you want piranhas and a fence.
No.
Barbed wire fence.
No. He has just ordered stopping the deportations.
He's done more.
He's just ordered, Mark, what did he do last year?
He's done more.
He issued an executive order stopping the deportations.
He has deported more in 5 years than Bush has in 8.
And
he has done almost double.
And he issued an executive order stopping it.
Deportation, and already have done more than George Bush.
And he won't do any more.
And you know that there's fewer people coming across the border because the Bush recession caused a lot fewer to go in. So he's deporting more out while fewer are coming in, which means he's more than twice effective as George Bush. And still your party won't accept him on border security.
Mark,
that's really over the top.
Let's face it. The president is not interested in border security. The president cannot be trusted on border security. The president
he's twice as effective as George Bush, and he can't be effective on border security.
First of all, deportations are not border security. Okay. Secondly, let's talk about the executive order that he issued stopping the deportations. They're not happening anymore, Mark. He issued an
executive order saying that he was going to focus his deportation on criminals and focus them not on the children that came here when they were 2, 5, or 6. That makes sense. Remember, he's already been twice as effective as George Bush.
Right,
so
and now he's not being effective at all.
And so, no. This hasn't stopped all deportations. He has not stopped all deportations. He stopped deporting the kids that came here when they were 2, 5, or 6, or 10.
He's issued 5 or 6 illegal executive orders on Obamacare. He's issued illegal executive orders on EPA.
Let's talk about
the president cannot be trusted. The Republicans do not trust him, and unless he comes to them, unless he takes the initiative and he shows them that they can establish trust on this issue, an area where we might find agreement is not going to happen because the president cannot be trusted.
1 week president into office, the Republicans said they wouldn't work with him. 1 month into office, Mitch McConnell said, they asked, what was his primary goals? Was it tax reform? Was it jobs? He said, nope, my goal is to get Obama out of office. Everyone from Rush Limbaugh saying he wanted him to fail. The Republicans said from day one, no. You're like, we can't trust him after you said you couldn't trust him on day one, and you've actually used less trust since that time. They've filibustered more than any Congress in history put together. The Republicans have filibustered more. So please, Mark, your party said from the outset, we will not let you succeed. We want the economy to fail because we want you to fail. Okay. That has been your party's agenda. So now to say you can't trust Obama, please don't pretend that's anything new. That's your party's goal.
Both PolitiFact and the Washington Post named President Obama the liar of the year in 2013. So let's not,
you haven't denied the fact that the Republican Party from day one decided we will not cooperate with Obama, even if it's something that helps America, because that would make America succeed, and then Obama would seem to succeed. Your party is actually trying to make the economy fail. That's one of the reasons, for example, why your party supports austerity so much. In addition, remember, your party loved big spending under Bush, loved big spending under Reagan, loved big spending under Bush Sr., and we were the party of fiscal conservatism. You and I argued that. We were the party of pay-as-you-go. We were the party that said, don't spend all this money on corporate welfare. Don't spend all this money on hedge fund owners and things like that.
So we can agree that Solyndra was a crime?
So now your party...
Can we agree Solyndra was a crime? Too much corporate welfare?
Now your party... is basically saying whenever a Democrat's in office, we suddenly believe in fiscal conservatism. So please don't tell me that your parties, why can't we work together in Congress to find ways that the two parties can come together? For example, the most recent budget deal. I didn't like it. A lot on your side didn't like it, but they recognized it was better than shutting the government down. Immigration is one of those things I think we can work on.
Well, in addition to 2 separate independent left-wing organizations, PolitiFact and the Washington Post, naming the president the liar of the year, in addition to that,
neither is PolitiFact.
We need, if the president...
If they were a left-wing organization, they wouldn't name the president the liar of the year, now would they? Come on.
If the president shows...
You ever heard Fox News call George Bush Jr. the liar of the year?
If the president...
And that's a conservative organization. Our organizations are fair. Go ahead.
If the president will show some flexibility, signal that he's willing to work on this instead of my way or the highway, we might get something done. And that's what the president needs to do tomorrow night. If he's going to get anything.
I think Republicans need to stop fighting the battles of the past.
If the president does not signal flexibility, then you're not going to get anything this year.
I think Republicans need to stop fighting the battles of the past. All right, the battles over the Affordable Care Act are over.
No, they're not.
They can be fixed.
No,
it can
they're
be
not,
tweaked
Mark.
a little bit at the end.
No,
but I'll tell you something. Americans all across the country are finding that they're getting cheaper health care, better health care, at a cheaper cost, and they're happy about
Mark,
it. And
no one is getting cheaper, better health care.
By the time 2017
everybody is paying
comes
more
around,
for less coverage. Everybody is paying more for
maybe
less
1%.
coverage.
Maybe 1%.
Yeah, 1% are getting a good deal. 99% are getting screwed. Obama's screwing his own 99%.
That's just crazy talk. 75% are getting the same insurance they always have.
Obamacare is a disaster. Face it. Why are you the only Democrat in the world that argues that it's a success?
You know what?
Every other Democrat is running away from this downward death spiral, and you're defending it.
Have you seen the CBO numbers, congressional budget numbers?
They suck.
They don't suck. No, we're saving money. We're saving money on the deficit.
We're not saving money.
Have you seen that healthcare costs have had the lowest increase in the last 40 years?
Mark,
thank you, President Obama.
My costs were going to go down.
Seen that?
I was promised my costs are going down $2,500 a year. My costs are going up $6,000 a year for bull coverage. And I'm in the same boat everybody else is.
Here's the
Mark,
thing.
it's awful.
I know your party loves the free market and believes that the government should never, ever, ever intervene to give people a chance to get, healthy if they need to. I get that. No regulation. Regulations are bad. And I have to say...
No, not all regulations are bad. Okay. Most Obama regulations are bad, but not all regulations are bad.
What about the fact that West Virginia didn't happen to regulate its chemical tanks, right? West Virginia was a conservative dream, right? They said, you got chemicals over the only river left, the Elk River, the only clean river in West Virginia, because we poured arsenic and selenium and the Koch brothers, basically, and energy industries and so forth have destroyed the rivers.
First of all, the Koch brothers have nothing to do with that.
They do oil.
Absolutely nothing
to do with that. It was the coal companies.
That's slander.
But they all believe in lack of regulation as much as possible. And West Virginia did not regulate. They last checked their fuel tanks 22 years ago, and lo and behold, the entire capital of West Virginia didn't have fresh drinking water. And now that's a Republican dream. That's a free market. You go ahead.
Not.
You don't get, because regulations are bad. The EPA is bad. All right?
No, absolutely not.
So are you okay with having strong clean water standards and the EPA measuring and making sure you can't stick harmful chemicals in the water?
I don't care whether there were regulations by the state of West Virginia there or not. The fact is they don't have the right to pour that stuff into the river by accident or on purpose. It was an accident.
Sure they do. You know what that right's called?
No, they don't.
It's called limited liability.
No, they don't.
You pour it in, you make money. If they notice it, you declare bankruptcy. And that's the corporate system you support so much.
So here's what we do, okay? We investigate how this happened. If it was gross negligence, then they get criminally prosecuted, okay? That's what we do about that. Nobody's letting them off. Nobody's saying that they should be able to do this.
How about piercing the corporate veil and going after every one of those executives until they're dirt poor and homeless? How about that?
If there's gross negligence, they get prosecuted and they go to jail.
How about making sure they lose all the money they made from poisoning the river?
They shouldn't be homeless. They should be in jail.
After this.
They should be in jail, not homeless, if they're grossly negligent.
It might be easy for some folks, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because
just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. This is Mark Levine. We looked it up. It turns out it was Fox that called President Obama the liar of the year.
No, it was
Washington
PolitiFact.
Post said he had one of the misleading claims, and PolitiFact called it lie of the year, but didn't call the president
Lie of the year.
liar
If you
of the
like
year.
your doctor, you can keep it instead of liar of the year. Difference without
I would argue the liar of the millennium was George Bush when he said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
No,
we'll just call him the liar of the millennium. And if Obama can get lie of the year, that's fine. Let me go back to West Virginia though, because this is a problem I've always argued with the corporate form. It's limited liability, and basically it works very easily. You do some very, very risky behavior to make a lot of money. You give all that money to all the corporate execs and people like that, and you don't check your tanks. You don't make sure they're not leaching poison into the water. And when they do, you declare bankruptcy, and the execs get to walk away with all the money. Here it's very simple. I would make sure that every penny that those executives made while this place was poisoning the people of West Virginia, every penny gets paid back. I would pierce the corporate veil, because there's when you are poisoning an entire city, you know what? That is by definition gross negligence. That's by definition. We have strict liability, for example. I know you know that for nuclear plants.
Mark,
you conduct a nuclear plant, it has an explosion, it kills 10,000 people. You are strictly liable, even if you can't show the person that didn't check the tanks.
You're a lawyer. You know better than what gross negligence is. Gross negligence is not the outcome. Gross negligence is the action that causes the outcome, be it severe or be it not severe.
Doesn't have to be gross negligence.
You're beating a dead horse.
It doesn't have to be ordinary negligence.
We agree. They're going to jail if it's gross negligence.
No.
You're beating a dead horse.
Doesn't have to be gross negligence. I don't care if it's ordinary negligence. If you negligently poison and kill somebody, okay, are you still liable? You are. Even if you're not grossly negligent, you still are. I say that if you have a chemical plant, strict liability. Same thing we have for nuclear plants. If you poison the place, you pay for it, even if we have to pierce the corporate veil.
Well, I don't think that's the current law, Mark. You're not.
It's not the current law,
so you can't do that.
But it should be, and that's the difference.
Oh, I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing what you can do now. You said, what can we do now about this? And I'm telling you what we can do now.
But you agree.
If you want to talk about utopia in the future, okay, we can talk about utopia in the future.
You agree with
but
strict liability, that basically if you poison a river so that 300,000 people can't drink their water or use the shower or brush their teeth or anything, which is what happened in West Virginia, you have to compensate every single person there for damages, and you're not going to let bankruptcy get you out of it, because there are a lot of people made a lot of money from that company long before it declared bankrupt. All right, if we agree,
I don't think the damages are very high, but we'll.
A lot of people have simply left. They had to leave, and they had to leave for weeks on end. They're still telling pregnant women.
Mark, it was a 4-day crisis. It was not. It was a 4-day crisis.
They're still telling pregnant women not to drink the water.
Okay, well, you know what? They ought to pay for every bottle of bottled water that goes there. They ought to pay and give them an extra 10 cents on top of it too. Absolutely, I'm good with that. Compensation.
It's a lot more than bottled water, but you get the point. There's also hospital bills, things like that.
Okay, so they're paying for that as well.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. Let's talk about the former governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell, and his wife. They have been indicted. The more and more I read about it, the more and more I think the indictment is a good idea. I think taking all these loans and gifts and so forth is unconscionable. And here's the reason I like it. Either he'll be convicted, and I'm fine with that, or if he is found not guilty because the law allowed it, then that will draw attention to laws that absolutely should prevent this kind of bribery. We need to change the laws and make sure that if this is legal, that it's never legal again?
All right, first of all, you're being reckless by using the term bribery. There is no evidence that's been released yet. We'll find out what happens in court, but there's no evidence that's been released yet that there's any bribery going on anyplace, okay?
Should we talk about...
So you're being reckless.
Wait.
The second thing is...
Did he promote the guy's business? He did. Did he promote the drugs? He did. Did his wife do it? Yes. We even have emails that the prosecutor... No, he's innocent until proven guilty. I respect that. But at the same time, I've seen those emails where basically Ms. McDonald is asking him for all these favors and all these very expensive things.
And is there anything illegal about that?
You know what? There should be.
Yes, there should be. But there's not. So the indictment is purely political. It's a very, very weak indictment when you look at it.
Why was this business owner buying Oscar de la Renta dresses for the governor's wife? Was it because he thought she was a pretty woman who deserved a nice dress?
You know
the same is true for the Rolex watches? The same is true for the daughter's weddings? And why was he pushing so hard to promote his business through the governor? And you think there's nothing connected there? I mean, if so, because there's a bridge in George Washington going off to New Jersey that I'd like to block for you.
I'm saying there's no evidence there was any connection there. In order for there to be criminal activity, you don't need unethical, sleazy behavior. I'm stipulating to that, okay? But that's not a criminal conviction. For a criminal conviction, you need to be able to demonstrate and prove a quid pro quo.
That's right.
There is none that we've seen so far.
It's not been proven yet because they haven't gone to trial.
No, but there's nothing that's been released that even hints at a quid pro quo yet.
Sure there is.
Now, we will find out when we go to trial whether or not there's anything. But right now, it looks like a sleazy political indictment. Look,
why did the Virginia businessman? Why did he give all those gifts to the governor's wife? Give me an honest reason. He gave all those gifts to the governor's wife.
Well, he was obviously trying to curry favor with the governor's wife.
Why? Because he liked her? Because she was pretty?
It doesn't matter what his intent matter.
Of course it does.
Whether he received a quid pro quo.
And he did because the governor and his wife both promoted his business. So he got his quo, he got his quid. Now you're arguing about the pro.
Mark.
I mean, he got benefits from this governor and his wife.
No, he can get all the benefits from the governor's wife that he wants. There's nothing criminal in that.
So you're arguing there's quid and there's the quid.
She is not a public official, okay? So therefore, he and Mrs. McDonald can do anything they want, and there is no crime. Absolutely no crime at all because she's not an elected public official. Therefore, there is no crime.
Mike.
So now, you're talking about...
Mike, now you're really splitting hairs.
No, I'm not splitting hairs, Mark. I'm telling you what the law is.
There's all these benefits. There's all this money.
I'm telling you what the law is.
Let's talk about the law.
You're a lawyer.
Right.
You know these things.
Right. So what's the quid? The quid is all the hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans and gifts and expensive things. That's undisputed.
Not hundreds of thousands.
More than 100,000, 140,000, and that was cash alone. And then there's tens of thousands in Rolex watches and wedding gifts. And
magic number comes in closer to 150 than 200.
I think it comes in closer to 200 than 150, but we're not going to argue over that. So the quid is there. What's the quo? It is beyond dispute that the governor and his wife actively promoted this guy's product. Okay, what you're basically saying is that this businessman who gave all these loans and benefits and was continually begged, and so much so that it annoyed him, according to the documents that the feds have already released, to get more and more money. He gave all this income. He got all this benefit in return. We know the governor's wife wanted that income. We know the businesses want in return. You've conceded. You can't think of a reason why the businessman is paying for all these things except to get something in return.
I said he was currying favor with the governor's wife. I said that.
Why? For monetary profit.
Mark.
Why?
It doesn't matter why.
It does matter why. Intent is all about this. That's what bribery is.
There is absolutely no crime that could be committed between Johnny Williams and the governor's wife. There is no crime there. It can't be. It's not in the law.
If Johnny Williams is giving money to the governor's wife because the governor needs money and is complaining to his wife, and the governor knows about it and curries and gives him benefits because of it, I think that's quid pro quo.
If he gives benefits because of it, there's no information or evidence that there were any benefits given because of it.
I'm sure the congressman in Amsterdam will tell you, of course we supported helping you get good immigration things. We're always about helping people get immigration. And of course we like the $80,000 in cash, but there's no connection between them. We would have given you these wonderful benefits without the cash. We would have taken the cash without the wonderful benefits. And if a jury believes that, you're right, he's acquitted.
Mark,
I don't think the jury's going to believe that.
You know what? In Abscam, we had all these guys on tape. The quid pro quo was recorded. It was played in court. It was obvious. This is not anything even related to
I think it's going to be
Abscam.
hard to argue to a jury that Johnny Williams was giving money to the governor for...
He didn't give the governor any money at all.
He gave him a Rolex watch.
Okay.
He gave him $140,000 that was later called a loan, but there's no papers for it.
It was a loan, Mark.
Why wasn't there any paperwork?
It was a loan. It was,
$140,000 and no paperwork?
No.
That's a nice loan.
Look, here's.
I mean, they're not exactly family.
Here's what you read into this. Okay, there are 28 indictments that the feds decided to lay down on this.
Mm-hmm.
They went to the governor and they said, guess what? We'll dismiss all 14 counts against your wife.
That's right.
Let her walk scot-free.
Guilty.
And
right.
we'll dismiss 13 counts against you if you plead guilty to this unrelated count over here and do one out of 28.
Okay.
You know what that is? That's the prosecution saying, "Oh man, do we have a weak hand? Let's see if we can trick this guy into falsely accepting
That's a plea bargain, and you know what?
You never get that good a plea bargain.
I'm talking about the extra charge.
Never get that good a plea. Mike, that's the prosecution saying we don't have a case.
If
that's
what this
did.
governor did is legal under current law, and it may well be, if it is, to me, that's...
We don't know yet because we haven't seen the evidence.
Well, I only know what we've seen in the newspapers.
And we know that there's no proof of criminal activity in the newspapers.
If this governor is not convicted, then that is an indictment not of the McDonald's, but of current law. And I hope you and I can agree that this kind of thing should never be legal. And if it's shown to be legal because of the loopholes in Virginia law, the law needs to be changed. On that, we can agree, right?
First of all, we're going to get ethics reform anyway, even before the trial's not going to be until next summer. We're going to have ethics reform within the next 30 days. So the trial's got nothing to do with ethics reform.
And the Republicans will support McAuliffe's plan.
The General Assembly and Governor McAuliffe will likely sign into law ethics reform, but it's going to be Virginia ethics reform. The feds have come in with this obscure Hobbs Act. They're pressing federal charges, not Virginia state charges.
Right,
It's an apple and an
Virginia state charges.
It's an apple.
We should also have federal charges for this kind of thing. Absolutely. I am proud, though, of my new Virginia leadership. I'm proud of McAuliffe for ethics reform.
Oh yeah, I'm real proud of him.
I'm proud of the Virginia Senate. By the way, the recount was won today, and it looks like we are going to have a Democratic Senate in Virginia. The General Assembly will be the only place that's still controlled by your party due to gerrymandering and so forth. And the new Attorney General, Mark Herring, has announced that he's going to follow the Constitution of the United States, which, as you know, trumps the Virginia Constitution, and equal protection under the law, the 14th Amendment. He is going to join the plaintiffs fighting the prohibition against gay people marrying in Virginia. He's going to fight that. Good for him. That's what they did in California. They'll still have 2 county clerks, so they're fully represented, so the issue will go before the courts. But the Attorney General is staying on the right side of history, unlike in Loving v. Virginia, when Virginia was on the wrong side of history in the interracial marriage case.
All right, let's talk about your unethical governor first, all right? You've got a guy named Boyd Marcus, who's sort of a shadowy political operative on the Republican side. He goes to the Cuccinelli campaign and says, for $40,000 a month, I can help you guys out.
You just try to politically smear him.
For $40,000 a month, I can help you guys out. The emails have been released. We've all seen them. The Cuccinelli campaign turns him down. He goes to the McAuliffe campaign and says, for $10,000 a month, I can help you. They hire him for $10,000 a month, and what's the payback? They give him a $122,000 a year job running the ABC, which he has no qualifications
He's right about marriage equality.
So you're paying
He's absolutely right about marriage equality, and you know it, and that's how they won it in California.
It doesn't get any more sleazy.
Thank God for Attorney General Mark Herring of Virginia. Thanks for coming on this.
Mark Herring, Red Herring's going to resign for abandoning his post.
That is crazy.
He's going to resign.
That's just crazy talk.